to another episode of Middle Ground with JLE L.L.C, where we treat you like family. That's the theme song, Detroit Love, off my first album, The JLE Experience. We got a special episode in this season 11, a panel episode, special start time from 6 to 8 p.m. We'll welcome in family, former guest, Gina King, known as Gina, cybersecurity expert. And so, of course, you got the PMP, MBA, MHA, some of the other great letters behind the name. She do a lot of great work out here. I myself, my little marking out the way, author, musician, journalist, speaker, CEO, and host of the Middle Ground brand. I have 2 albums out, JLE World, JLE Experience. I have 3 books out. Go to Amazon.com and look up Jeffrey L. Edwards. You'll find all 3 books. And I'm working on these great shows. This one, the Sports Line with JLE and Marte, and the Saturday night show where we have panel discussions about all social media, the social topics, ground floor. So this should be fun. I'm going to hand this over to Gina, and this will be a great show about career leadership.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just wanted to mention before we jump into it that Jeffrey, you got to slow that down because you mentioned that this is your 11th season of doing this. It's quite impressive, the level of commitment. So that's what drew me in, is watching all the different types of people you have on here. So if someone's looking and they're in that middle ground, I feel like this is an excellent spot. So I appreciate you for allowing us to come and share a little bit about what we do and what we think people should know. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for that. I appreciate y'all for doing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm Gina King, and I've been working with Jeffrey not at all for 11 seasons, just trying to be encouraging and supportive. It's quite impressive. Anytime I see something like this, I'm drawn to help. And so tonight, I'd like everyone to introduce themselves. I work largely in cybersecurity. I do some project management, everything that I can do to support technology leaders. From time to time, I play either a project manager, sometimes an engineer, from time to time a virtual CISO. And so I have a few people here with me that I call my team, and I think that they're a pretty unique group of people. So I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we can carry on from there. Ms. Tangela.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tangela Eaton. I currently reside in Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm very happy to be here with you all today. And I'll give you a few things about myself that I currently have going on. As a career coach, I help people find their purpose and also go from middle level positions to more higher level leadership positions around the 6-figure role. And that for me is a life mission of helping people find work that they truly enjoy. And secondly, as a training consultant, I help companies improve their training and development programs. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm happy to learn about each of you and help our audience solve some problems tonight.
Mr. Marcus.
Yeah, fantastic. I wanted to say thanks again for having me, both Jeffrey, Gina, and all of our co-hosts here. It's an absolute honor to be participating in this. So I'll get started. My name is Marcus Wells. I'm a CEO and founder of a cybersecurity company called Well Secured IT. I specialize in identity security as a particular focus to kind of shape the entire industry through that root cause analysis. Part of what I do is provide, advisement, strategic, coaching for organizations, but also, do kind of dabble in some career coaching and some mentorship within the space as well. I like to take a very kind of layman's or layperson's approach to communicating things and the spectrum of cybersecurity, try to make it as easy and feasible as possible so that people can have the understanding and feel empowered to be able to move forward. That's it.
Ernest?
Yeah, good evening. I'd like to also thank you for providing this platform for us to go ahead and do something like this. My name is Ernest. I'm out of the Houston area. Growing up in Houston, I think you trip over a rock and you end up in the oil and gas industry. And that's what I did early on. Started off in going to the field, and then after that transitioned into the office. And then in the office, I was doing identity and access management, and not even realizing it by running Active Directory and Azure AD. And for about the last 8 to 10 years or so, I've been in technology. And I'm here with y'all because I met Marcus. I reached out. I did exactly what people were saying in LinkedIn. Reach out to people, make it genuine, make a conversation with them. And Marcus created a Zoom link, and we talked. And ever since then, he's been kind of one of the guys I go to. So I would say that he's one of my mentors, someone I really look up to. And I right now I'm currently working as an implementation engineer, and I want to get back into operations. I've been in operations, and I've ran things like SailPoint. I'm sure everyone's heard of SailPoint. There's a big push for SailPoint, and now I'm implementing PAM solutions, CyberArk, and Beyond Trust with XMS solutions. And again, like I said, I want to get back into operations. So trying to get back into operations, the first thing that they'll ask me, since I'm, anyone can aggregate data, anyone can read data and stuff like that. But they say things like, well, walk me through an audit. What do you do for an audit? So obviously there's some gaps that I want to fill. So that's why I'm reaching out using platforms like this to try to connect with people to try to help fill those gaps. So one of the things that I'm kind of looking for now is someone to kind of walk me through an audit process. So that way, when I'm asked that question, I can aggregate the data, explain the data, and then go through an actual audit. Maybe just kind of describing it without having to do it, and then kind of that's what I'm working on now. That's the near term goal, but the long term goal obviously is to do the things that Gina and Marcus and a lot of the other people solving real complex problems and simplifying it so that way, whether you're talking to someone in technology or someone that's in the functional role, that they'll understand exactly what you're trying to accomplish.
That's impressive because Marcus and I just finished an audit, and so we need to talk about that. I'm glad we did this so we can, we'll help you. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Arnaz?
Yes, I'm here and on time. He was having some issues here before. Yes, Arnaz Edwards. I am a sales director of the Med Writers. I am a Coast Guard veteran. I am a data privacy advocate. And long story short, I make stuff happen by getting on the phone and reaching out to individuals that don't know me from Jack anywhere. Smile, introduce a pain, or at least, shine a light on a pain and then solve it. Long story short.
I feel like you need to explain why your camera's not on, because you said smile. So you introduced that into the court case. And for the record, why isn't your camera on? I just want to have it like recorded.
Yeah, for sure. So, guys, my AC on my second floor is out right now. So I am sweating bullets as I'm even talking right now. That's why I'm stuttering and stammering and all over the place. It's crazy. It's 88 degrees up here. My laptop fan is on. It's never on, which I think is the reason why I'm having a little bit of tech issues, or at least a little bit of a delay. So long story short, though, I'm here. There's excuses and then there's solutions. So,
No. And that's great. So I just wanted everyone to know. So I've worked with all of these individuals on several different projects. And the reason I brought them together is we talk about all the time how the industry gives the impression that you have to be this unique person or have this magical mix to get into these industries, whether it's cybersecurity or technology or changing your career. And we don't believe that to be the case. And so we really want people to feel comfortable reaching out and getting questions answered and things. But team, when I say that, the industry is saying that you have to be like this super unique person that is so difficult to get in, or this idea that you have to break in. What do you think about that, or how does that make you feel, Marcus?
Yeah, I have a lot of complex emotions around that. Having been in this industry in tech for over 20 years, and it's not something I tell people. People don't really notice about me. So this is a bit of an exclusive piece of information, but everything I know of working in tech and working in cybersecurity, self-taught. So I have a lot of complex feelings around it, simply because, even as Arnez mentioned, one of the things I think really connects all of us in this room together is our ability to understand that the root cause of many of these things that are happening. And for me, one of the things I've identified is that there's an issue with communication. There's a lot of language out there. There's a lot of nomenclature. There's a lot of acronyms, and sometimes those things kind of mean the same thing. Sometimes they mean something different. Sometimes it's the definitions are very subjective, and so I think that oftentimes plays a significant part in an individual feeling like they can come in and be successful in a tech related space. And so, from my perspective, part of what I do is try to demystify those terminologies and really bridge a gap between the known language and the unknown language, within those spaces, so that really anybody who wants to do it can do it, because that's really all it amounts to. If you want to do it, you can absolutely do it. There's no reason why you can't. And I'll just kind of say one more thing, and I'll let somebody else, take the reins here a little bit. Identity security is a prime example, right? We hear about it all the time, especially because like many of us in this room right now are aware of it. We know of it. It's something we do all the time in terms of the work within cybersecurity. However, there are not any classes that teach this stuff from an educational standpoint within colleges or anything like that. There are courses that you can take, but those are courses that are sponsored by vendors
Yes.
with an interest to sell a product, so that they're not really teaching you about the underpinning process of the thing. They're more just showing you how their product works specifically. And so I think that can kind of play a part in it as well. And so, once again, I try to fill that gap from showing people like, hey, there's more to this than just this product, and it's achievable. The information is right here. It's presented in a way that is understandable.
The reason I think that's really valuable, what you said, first of all, when you said demystify, I thought education. So I want Tangela to talk a little bit about the power in educating people, as you're working with them to figure out what it is they want. But then the other thing you said is some of the information that's out there is tied to a particular vendor. And so some of the job posts may list like a sleuth of different products and softwares and things, and it gives people the impression that they're not qualified, when in reality, the likelihood that that organization has installed all of those things at the same time is probably low. That those may be some forward-looking projects or some like-to-haves and things. So it's really important to not allow a job post to keep you from applying for a job that you know that you can do because you're capable, and having the discussion about what on that job post is going to be a part of your job. So, just quickly as an example, you only have 40 hours in a week. If they have 25 things on the page, how many of those things can you get done in a week? So you really want to ask, what percentage of these items will I do in that 40 hours? It may be one or two. And the rest of the things are either legacy things that maybe you'll work on 10% of the time for the entire year, or some forward-looking projects and things. So it's really important to kind of nail down with the person who wrote that job description, likely in an interview, exactly what they meant by that post. So on the demystifying, being able to educate people, I wanted Ms. Tangela to make a couple comments about that, because I know you spend a lot of time helping organizations to see how they can frame things and define things in new ways.
Yes, definitely. I think when working with candidates, it's very important to help the individual distill down their experience. So, what happens in a particular role, we usually go there, we work, and we just do the work without really doing a critical analysis of what the work involves. So, when I work with clients, it's really about listening to what the work is and then helping them to see, oh, if you've managed students in the classroom, you can also manage customers, and really understanding what's involved in the work that you've done that transfers to another environment. And so I always tell people, all of our jobs do about three things for a company. They help the company make money, spend less money, or save time. And so if you've done either of those three things, that usually transfers to a different environment. And so really helping the individual know what the core skills are, and then understanding job descriptions to as Gina said, demystify and actually speak the language of what's in the job description to know that this is what the company really means by that, and you've done that before. So I think it's really the personal education of understanding one's prior experience and then understanding what the role entails. Sometimes that means that a client will have to do some retraining, retooling, or upgrading, and sometimes not. Sometimes it's really just about reframing the previous work experience so that a new employer can understand what the client has done and how that translates to their environment.
That's fantastic. And when you mentioned about transferable skills, I wonder, Arnaz, if you have anything to say about that, because I feel like your transition into all this has been inspiring to me. So I would love for you to talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was a data privacy consultant for massive, logos, government agencies, I mean, mom and pop shops, anything. Long story short, these days our data is all over the place. And it's in CRMs, it's in people search sites, is in data broker sites, is all over the place. And by let me rephrase myself and get myself together. I'm sorry, I'm very hot. um, so I was able to shift from a sales or consultancy role in data privacy in now nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals, and marketing and technical writing services. That's like what I actually sell. I have a team of about 20 PhD writers that are working for massive organizations that need, you know, anything from labels to blog posts to white papers, just so long story short, yeah, I was able to transition into a sales director role from an account executive role in data privacy, because ultimately it's the same thing. It's consulting, it's finding a problem and finding a solution, and then presenting that and operationalizing it and then scaling it.
That's fantastic. So, Ernest, when you're in different roles and you have to learn something new, because you said you want to move more to operations, how do you visualize that, or what are some things that you've run into that you want to share?
Yeah, it's funny that earlier you had mentioned that the job postings will list a bunch of different things, and do you match them? I've been approached by recruiters, and they'll tell me, "Well, we want to bring someone in with PAM experience," and it shows that you have some Beyond Trust, because I don't put CyberArk. I think I'm more skilled in Beyond Trust. And then I asked them, "So which one are you using?" Because I mean, they're two completely different products. They do the same thing, but if you want to use one, the to start off with, the GUI is going to be completely different. The way you generate reports, the way the reports are stored in the database, all of the APIs are going to be different. So which product is it? And then they say, well, we're not really sure. Well, you list someone that you want to be an expert in this, and yet you're telling me that you don't even have that. So that kind of gives me an idea about how mature it is. So as a job seeker trying to get out of the implementation into operations, I think the biggest thing to do is just you know dive in. If you know something, I think I know one of the things that I do when I'm interviewing with someone, I'll ask them, okay, you got 20 things listed here. When I hit the floor and I hit the floor running, what are the top three things that you see me doing on a day-to-day basis for maybe week 2 or week 3? Because it's not going to happen on day 1. Week 2, week 3, what do you see me doing? Top 3 things. Those are the 3 things that I'm going to focus on, so that way I know how you do them in your organization. And then if you want to do Beyond Trust, or you change and you want to do CyberArk, well then I'm going to have to transition, and I'm going to have some time. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. People learn at a different pace. I think I'm fortunate that I'm above average as far as learning new skills. Obviously, there's people that are more sharper than me, but it's going to just take time. You have to know what it is you want, what direction you're going in. And again, like I said, if they don't even know what tool they're going to use, I already know that their documentation, their KB databases are not going to be there. So that's going to be another hurdle that you have to overcome. So that's kind of the approach that I have in the conversation that I have when someone's asking me about a new technology. And the thing is, yeah, if you want me to learn this, I can learn this and I can learn anything else, but you're just going to have to give me some time. So if you list 20 things and you want someone that can come in and do all 20 things, you may find that unicorn, but they're going to be very few and far between, because it's hard to learn how many thousands and thousands and thousands of applications that people use on a daily basis, and other skills that they use. That's why the technology departments are so large, especially in these enterprises. I mean, they have so many employees because you're not going to find a unicorn that can do everything. And that's my approach.
That's impressive. It does change all the time. So I definitely would encourage people to talk to a couple people in the industry. If you have a network, use your network. Like, that's why they're there. They want you to reach out and ask for help. If you don't have a network, build a network. Get your questions answered. It's okay to reach out and ask about a particular job post or a particular opportunity that you're looking at. I'm definitely always open to take a look. Ernest, you entered two things into the court record that I feel that are a little bit out of scope, but I'm triggered. The things are, when you mentioned Beyond Trust and PAM. So a lot of the people who are watching and listening, they don't necessarily realize that these are tools that organizations implement to try to bolster cybersecurity. But I just want to bring up a general topic that I want everyone to know. Having a tool is not an adequate substitute for having the process in place for the employees to move end to end through whatever it is they need to do. And so in those interviews, whatever they're for, you want to make sure if there are different tools or products and things on the job post, that you're also asking about the process that the organization will go through to do it. Because the tool, that's secondary. So if you don't know how to cook, adding a tool in is not going to help you if you already don't know how to do the thing. And so when I mention that, does anybody have anything they want to say?
I do, actually. I do. And I'll be honest, the first reaction was to make like a silly and facetious comment, but I'm gonna keep it nice. I'm gonna keep it, positive, right? And I think it's really important, not only for organizations but also for candidates, whether experienced or inexperienced, whether they're new to a field or existing in that field for a while, to really understand that, as you mentioned so aptly and really highlighted a lot of what Ernest was kind of bringing to the forefront and surfacing as well, is that these are tools that are meant to enable specific activities within a enterprise environment. However, the tools, what I mean, right, will not by themselves be able to solve the problem. The tools themselves are not an easy button that can just be deployed into an environment. And even when you think about an easy button, right? Everyone knows that the common imagery from the Staples commercials, right? And an easy button, in order for it to work, even if one existed, you got to purchase it, of course. You got to set it up where you want it to be, right? And the very next thing you have to do is you have to push the button. Like even within that situation, you still have to take an action, right? There's still a fully holistic end-to-end process. Step one, purchase the button. Step two, place the button where you want the button to function. Step three, decide you're going to push the button. Step four, pushing the button. So I think there's definitely something to be said for that. And then to kind of cap it off and move the conversation forward to the next logical step, one of the things that I've recognized within this space is that that understanding that understanding of that end-to-end holistic process that really becomes the fuel for the technology that's coming into the organization, right? That really drives that tool. One of the other pieces that really should be very well understood by both the organization and the candidates, and really everyone else who's involved, is the difference between, say, for instance, a project and a program, right? And not program in the sense of, hey, this is an application, but a program in the sense of, this is a thing that we're going to introduce into the enterprise, and it's going to need to be supported through those three key pillars of people, process, and technology.
I swear I didn't pay him to say that. I swear.
I wish someone would pay me to say that.
No, that's great. So, and why that's so important, and I want to put this in a way that it doesn't matter if someone has experience in technology or not. A schedule, like a list of when you're going to get things done, is not a plan, because whatever's on that list, there are other things that you need to do to prepare to get those things done, to even be ready to take care of that list and the time, in order to put yourself in a position to get all those back office things ready. So think about if you just had a schedule of what you need to do in a certain day, just as an individual. There's a philosophy you have to have that helps you to order and organize those things to get to the point where you can handle that task. And so looking at installing a tool as a project in an organization steals from the entire organization the time and information they need to develop a full plan, to change the philosophies, to understand the current process, what needs to change with that process so it can absorb this new tool. And as a result, what should the output be, regardless if there was a tool or not? Like, where does the organization mean to go? And I think often, whether it's in cybersecurity or technology or anywhere, without those key components where the organization gets to change and grow, the tools, they fail immediately. And
Could
so,
not agree more.
yeah, absolutely. And that's true in any industry. So with that, I would love to hear, Arnaz, from you about just the philosophy of how you move from unknowing to knowing, and how you were able to do that in the cyberspace, coming in from the military and some of your other experience. I would love that.
Okay. So your question is, what exactly? What are you
That
asking?
move, no, that's great. That move from the unknowing to knowing. So when you
Okay.
first approached data privacy and what you thought it was, and then when you really knew it, just that change in
Okay.
philosophy. Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah. So data privacy was just some, some buzzword, some catchword at first. Data privacy, compliance and GRC and all these other, you know, things that ultimately will just drown you in knowledge and understanding, trying to put it all together. Long story short, though, I got into the space. I I got into the space and I just studied. I mean, it's really simple. I literally just got on Google and started to do some due diligence, and in doing that, I think just being kind of green in a space allows you to see things that the executives and the industry thought leaders just miss. Honestly, so I came in and I realized, hey, if 84% of all data breaches are generated from a phishing attack, well, why are all these email addresses and people's direct contact numbers in these CRMs and these data broker sites and these people search sites? PII infused attacks. It's constantly on the rise, and it's not going anywhere. So, I hope I answered your question there.
Absolutely, because you didn't need a magic wand, or you didn't need a whole bunch of technologists to help you. You just wanted to understand, and you studied until it became clear to you what the
Absolutely.
issue was. And so I think that that's available to everyone. So that's fantastic. Along those lines, and I think this is for everyone too, when you think about where this industry is going, if there's someone who's thinking about transitioning into this industry, or maybe they're in it and they want to go to a different spot, or maybe they're in a totally different industry, maybe like education or engineering, what would you say to them if they think they may be interested in what we're talking about? Ernest?
Yeah, when I talk to people, I tell them for sure you can learn it. It's like learning anything else. You have to put a plan into play and you have to execute the plan. And that's learning anything. So if you've learned anything else before, you can definitely learn IT. You can learn, a lot of people say start off at desktops. You get this certificate, get that certificate, get 500 connections linked in. Everyone has a recipe. I think people learn differently, but if you have the will and the desire, you can learn anything just as easily as you learn. And there's a lot of people. Arnest is transitioning. I'm also a transition. I was, again, like I said, mentioned oil and gas. I was a directional driller, and handled a lot of technology and didn't even realize it at the time. And with the ups and downs, oil and gas was very finicky, and I just got tired of getting laid off. The third time, I was like, I'm done. Kind of like the battle emperor that took his ship to the other side of the shore and burned his ship down. This is, and then that's what I did. I staked my flag and made connections, and you know, at the end of the day, because I was also working full time. At the end of the day, I would get in the computer and build a lab, ask questions, join forums like this, and but again, it's a commitment. You have to want it. If you can want it, it's achievable. If you've learned anything else, you can learn this.
That's what it takes. I love that. And then in terms of learning, Miss Tangela, anything you would add?
Yeah, I would say and know that the learning never stops. So I'm thinking of a client who transitioned from a managerial role in healthcare to a project management role in technology. And there was a big adjustment. I think landing roles is just the start of the journey. It's not the finish line. So when you make that transition, know that you're now on a path where you're going to consistently be learning. And so I remember during her adjustment phase, there was a tendency to maybe want to compare. Like, I don't have a technology background like everyone else at the table, but what she didn't realize is everything that she did bring to the table that wasn't there. So really, when you're transitioning to a new sector, know truly what you're bringing is very different, and then giving yourself space to learn something new, and know that that learning is never going to stop. So if you are new to technology, your learning curve may take 1 to 3 years just to continue that process of the things that you don't know because a person doesn't have a technology background. So I think that should be taken into account, and also be prepared for that emotional journey, because I think what we don't talk about a lot is the different emotions that you do go through once you are entering a new space, and know that that's totally okay. Like, it's totally okay to not feel confident even though you are in the space and you got there. You know what I'm saying? Like, imposter syndrome is real. And I think we have to normalize that it will be uncomfortable, even though you've reached a high achievement. That once you're settling in, you may experience some discomfort, but that's part of the journey.
I appreciate you for mentioning that, because one of the things I think can soften that a little bit in terms of the amount of time it takes to transition is, for example, if you're in healthcare and you want to move into IT, um, you'll find a lot of opportunity in healthcare IT where you would be above other potential candidates than if you went to a totally different industry in IT. So don't don't double the amount of steps you have to take. Make it easy for yourself. So, for example, if you're in oil and gas and you want to move into technology, find something within technology in oil and gas, because you're bringing in value with you, because they were only looking for someone who only had technology. You also know the business. Okay, so that's some additional value, and you're immediately winning because you're in your wheelhouse. So if you take a look at that, definitely. And then in terms of the imposter syndrome, one of the things that I tell people from time to time is we all have a gift to give. And you don't want to put yourself in a position where, because you felt other people may not accept you, you didn't give your gift. It's okay if you give your gift and people don't want it, because there's 7 billion people in the world. You can find somebody who wants your gift, but don't hold on to it because you feel that other people may feel a potential type of way, or what if I'm not good enough, or what. For some people, you're the best they'll ever know. And so you don't want to hold back. You're their only hope. And so if you feel like maybe you're not good enough for that particular group that you're going to, you might be the best. Give it your best shot. And so that's what I wanted to share about that. Anybody else?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to say something.
Please.
And you know, I'm just gonna say it like this: everyone in this room is just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, like seriously. And you know, I always feel so inspired by being in these spaces with just the immense amount of talent that I have the honor of engaging with on a daily basis. Like, you know, we talk about transitioning and you know, we're talking about the uncomfortableness that comes with it, right? And I think it's things like this that really can, as you mentioned as well, Gina, stop, like, soften that blow. You know, not just building out a network, right? But actually building out a community. I think, you know, what often happens within cybersecurity is that there is a lot of networking, and we could really benefit from more community, right? Like more of these spaces where people feel that, you know, regardless of their level of knowledge or expertise or number of years of experience or exposure or anything else, that they can come into a space and they can have a seat at the table. You know, because I'll be totally honest with you, much of my experience, even beyond me being self-taught, really came out of being able to sit in the same room with someone else who had more experience than I had, and listening to what they had to say, hearing about their experiences, understanding what they had seen, and synthesizing new information and new knowledge based off of those lived experience of others.
Fantastic. Anyone else?
I guess I just took all the points.
Yeah.
took all the points. Yeah. We're just basking in that just that revelation. I appreciate it. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So another question I had for all of you, because I think people get tired of hearing me, because it seems like I'm just this individual person doing this thing, but there's a large group of us that are working in these ways and working together and really trying to do the best we can for these organizations. When you think about where your career is going and ultimately what you want to do, what are some things that you think would help others to kind of get a head start on all of this? Is there anything?
I say do sales. Get in sales. Start
That's
selling something.
fantastic. Okay.
Absolutely.
Could you expand on that a bit?
Yeah. Well, in B2B sales specifically, you have to learn so much about business in general. It's almost like a little, you know, business course. It's a business class. You know, you're doing it live. You got to understand hierarchy. You got to understand, buying personas. You got to understand how to generate pain or interest. You got to convert that, and it's so much, not to get into it all right now, but long story short, I think sales is something that everybody should do at one, because you're always selling. You're literally always selling. You're selling yourself. You're, as you move through the world, I mean, everything is selling. Everything is selling.
And I just want to, so some people have like a strong aversion to sales, and we're not talking about some of the grimy sales stuff. We're talking
Hmm.
about putting forth your idea in the
Hmm.
marketplace
Absolutely.
and being
Absolutely.
able to educate people on what you think, practicing doing that. And it doesn't mean you have to be right, and it doesn't mean that they have to take your idea, but just being able to put your idea in the marketplace and then understand the feedback that you get. And if you don't, ask questions about it. So often we think that there's a lot to it, but just being available to educate people and communicate with people, you're halfway there. What do you think about that, Arnez, since you're the expert?
I agree 100%.
Anyone else? Fantastic. Anyone else? What would you, so people can get a head start when you think about where you ultimately want to go? What do you want to say?
I think there's some really great wisdom, and I don't want to get this wrong because I think it is from the African diaspora, but I could be wrong. And it's a simple phrase. There are two really good times to plant a tree, right? One, 20 years ago, right? The other great time to plant a tree is today. So to kind of answer your question of, what are some great ways to kind of get into this and do that thing, it's just really just do it. Identify an area where you feel like you can excel. Arnez, you mentioned so just poignantly, within sales, and I think like if you've got somebody who is interested in sales or who has a sales background, do that thing, right?
Mhm.
Ernest, you mentioned, kind of like being in oil and gas, and you've made that transition because you had specific industry knowledge about oil and gas. Do that thing, right? Tangela, I know you're obviously a career coach and a training consultant. I don't know your full backstory, right? I don't know your your origin story, if you will, right? But I'm sure that it had something to do with, your a natural talent to do the thing that you're doing now, and so by leaning into that, right, you're able to easily find the connective tissue, is what I call it, right, between what you know and what you've known your entire time and what you've always been good at, and then tying it back into this new area, right? So there's always something that connects the two together. The same way, like, I remember as a kid kind of playing 6 degrees of separation with like Kevin Bacon, right? There's always something that ties things back together to something else. And for me, it's just understanding, even if it's, 25 hops away, okay, well, what are those 25 hops, right? And then after I identify what those 25 hops are, it's like, okay, well, how can I reduce it from 25 to 23? How do I take it to 20, from 23 to 20? How do I take it from 20 to 18? Like, just slowly reducing the number of hops it takes in order for you to get to where you are, to where you want to be, and really just leaning into it. Like, I'll say one more thing, and I'll kind of pass it off to somebody else. One of my favorite quotes of all time is, in order for you to be really good at something, you have to suck at something first.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Very true. Very true. Ms. Honeywell?
Yeah, thank you. First, I just want to echo a few things that have already been said with Arnett's offering of get in sales. I think just building your muscles that comes from selling in some way is like the greatest secret sauce that people just don't know about. And what I mean by
Hmm.
that, in sales, you're going to improve your communication skills to do it well. You're going to be able to learn how to deal with rejection. You're going to learn how to be more accountable, how to manage processes better. So I think if there's one career that is highly underrated, but highly profitable, it would be sales. And because everything needs sales, you're always going to have an opportunity to work. So I just really want to underscore that as well. So my offering is going to be a book recommendation by Grant Cardone, The 10X Rule. And I know a lot of people may have different opinions about Grant's work. He's very controversial, so I do want to just highlight that. But when I read the 10X rule, I wish I had read that 20 years ago because there's so much that um, is there that I feel like, man, I wish people knew this, and I've started incorporating in my coaching. For example, taking massive action. So a lot of times clients will do the right steps, just not enough. So if your dream required 100, but your output stays at 20, you're never going to get there, even though you're taking the right steps. But you just got to do more. You got to do the 100 that is required. And so, just really understanding that component, I feel like if a person just understood that I really got to take this thing that I'm pursuing and pursue it with the greatest amount of energy that I have, and I also realize how much it requires. So if something requires 100 and you put out 95, it's still not going to manifest because you didn't get to 100. You gave up at 97. You gave up at 98. You gave up at 99. You got to keep pushing to get to 100. And so when we talk about networking, if you reach out to 5 people and because it's so uncomfortable to do that 5, you think, man, I've really done something significant here. And you have, it's just not enough. 5 people, 5 connections are not enough. You got to keep going till you get to 5 a day, not just 5 total. And so building those muscles and that repetition that's required for massive action is something that I would like to offer people.
Good point.
That's fantastic. Ernest?
Yeah, I wanted to add. So yeah, sales for sure, absolutely. I think to truly master it, you have to be able to teach it, to be able to teach it in a simplified manner, so that way people that don't understand it in maybe perhaps a 2 minute elevator pitch. You don't want to use too many technical terms, and this transcends through all industries. If you really want to master anything, try teaching it and then find out, get feedback. Did I explain it to you simple enough so you understand it? And that's one unique thing about technology. It's funny because you can go on YouTube, you can go on LinkedIn, and so many people are willing to share the information and the knowledge they learn. I mean, if you were to type in Active Directory, you can probably find 100 videos on people showing you how to do Active Directory. And other industries really aren't like that. I know medicine probably is not like that. It's very competitive, but I will tell you that a lot of industries, whenever you become what we call a SME, subject matter expert, a lot of times you're going to find those people just hoard that information. And then when they're dead and gone and they're out of the industry, look how much of good stuff they could have given to the industry that they chose not to because they were afraid to share it. So that's one thing that I like about the technology is the willingness for people to share the information and the willingness for them to explain it in a manner that people that are not not in technology understand it, because we have to do that on a day-to-day basis when we're talking to someone in HR, we're talking to someone in marketing, someone in sales, even CEOs, for example. They'll say, why don't I have elevated credentials? Why is my laptop, why doesn't it have an admin privileges? I'm so used to downloading whatever I want. And they're sitting there screaming at you, and you're going, well, you're the biggest fish in the pool here. We're trying to protect all of the data, and um, that, that that's just this is my take in it. I really think that it's unique, and not a lot of industries do that. Readily share the the information. So if you want to learn it, the best thing to do is maybe document, put it somewhere, put it on a video, If you don't like the way you sound or you look, Marcus had mentioned public speaking. You don't necessarily have to broadcast it out. Maybe put it in a file and share it with someone that you know is struggling and they want to learn something. But again, like I said, you can go on YouTube, LinkedIn, and any other sharing website and find stuff that you want because a lot of the generous people are demonstrating their skills and they're improving their skills and documenting it. So that's my take on it.
We have a question from DJ Knox. Do you think a lack of resources restricts some people and businesses from reaching that 100?
So I'll start with answering since I did bring out this concept, and then anyone else on the panel who would like to share. I think a lack of resources is a contributing factor. And by resources, I don't want to just refer to external resources. Sometimes we lack internal resources that prevents us from getting to the 100. So by internal, I mean a can-do attitude or a growth mindset that I can learn anything. And when I track over my career, my history, there are some projects that I left alone because I just didn't have the mental stamina to keep going. So I do think resources can be challenging, and not having resources is a barrier. But I think if you keep going to get to the 100-mile marker, you'll see that the resources will come, whether they're internal or external.
I want to respond to this question because all of you are reading my mind in terms of people moving forward, like what could they think about. But this particular question, the reason it's so powerful is in the circles that I travel in, I don't see a lot of brown faces. Like that's just the honest part of it. So when I do, and they are individuals like you. So when I met Miss Tangela, we were in a group together, and I just felt like she was very engaging. I was new to the team. She was very engaging, was open with the information. I never get that. Usually people clam out up and they just run away like, who's this lady? So I was drawn to that, the fact that she was open and asking me questions, and we were able to have a really good conversation. And I felt like, regardless of what happens with this organization or how this particular role goes, I want to have a relationship with this woman. Same thing with Miss Lakeisha. I'm going to have her introduce herself here, Miss Lakeisha Farver. When I was introduced to her, it was really in like a very strange setting where there was no reason for her to have a conversation with me, and I just felt like she was very engaging. Either she had questions, I was able to ask her questions, and she just really performs on a level that is very above par. Same thing with Marcus. When I had a discussion with him, he was so open and honest, even though he didn't agree with me. Open and honest as he wrangled me to the ground and then chased me with ideas. I just felt like I need to get to know, like the fact that he's just so open. I feel the same way with Ernest. Like, and Ernest, when I met you, I just felt like you were so open about your family and everything. The fact that you would share with me that you have an autistic son, all of these things. The thing I want to say is I don't have all the resources to take full advantage of all the opportunities that I have. Luckily, I found you, all of you. And so I think sometimes it is about not having enough resources. And I just feel extremely grateful that I've met all of you. So that's what I wanted to say. With that, I want Ms. Lakeisha to introduce herself, and then I do want everybody to respond to that one question if we could. Ms. Lakeisha, please.
Yes, good afternoon again. My name is Lakeisha Farver, and I am the CEO of Washlake Enterprises, and I own a call center, and I also write governmental contracts. And so I've been doing that for about 20 years. And my biggest goal is working with the community, having a vision for working and serving underserved clientele. A lot of the things that I do, there aren't a lot of brown people. And so I strive to make sure that those benefits are given reasonably and that they're able to touch communities where they normally wouldn't. I've worked with Hmong community, Korean community, as well as our African American community. So just being able to touch those diverse communities that normally wouldn't be served.
I feel so lucky to have met you. Like it's amazing. But everyone else, so that question about sometimes when we don't hit that 100% being the reason being a lack of resources or not having everything we need. Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. Why not, right? So I think
Mhm.
there's a piece of wisdom that somebody shared with me a couple years back, and it really did just change my entire perspective on life in general. Um, and that wisdom that was shared with me was effectively that resources are not finite when we're talking about, like, what we're dealing with here, right? We have to adopt, or we should adopt a mindset that the resources that we require to be able to accomplish the goals that we have to accomplish or we want to accomplish are infinite. And even in a situation where we don't have it right in this moment, it's simply because it's on its way, right? And I think just by adopting that mindset, in many cases, we can either A, identify where we can locate or acquire those resources, or B, find ways to still accomplish our goals in lieu of not having those specific resources. I find that one of the things that has really helped me more recently is simply taking a stand and saying, I am deciding to do this thing, right? I am making a decision. I am making a pact with myself. I am making a solemn vow with myself that I'm going to do this thing. And I find
Mhm.
that in the moments when I do that, come come hell or high water, nothing can stop me.
Mhm.
I love that you said
Absolutely
that.
nothing can stop me.
I love that you said that because one of the things as we wrap up here that I think is important is that you define your terms and who you're going to be before you enter into these spaces because you'll be put in all kinds of situations and you need to know where you will say no
Mm,
because it
Mhm.
could be the case that there's a conflict of interest or everything's on the line, any number of things, and you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you have to cut a corner. So the thing I would offer is figure out who you are and what you want to be, not only for your career but for your community, for your family, and make sure you know what that is, so when you see something approaching you that doesn't align with that, you're ready to say no.
Mm.
absolutely.
That's what I would say.
Absolutely. I'll add one more thing to that because I love how you put it. I saw somebody post recently that no is a complete sentence.
It is. Wrap it
Oh
up.
wow.
No.
Right, right. And I tell people all the time, if I'm making a request or if I'm asking for something, or whatever it is, right? If I'm positioning an argument, or sharing a thought, that requires that buy-in, I tell people all the time, no is an acceptable answer.
Exactly.
You don't have to feel bad about saying no. Like, I want you to feel, I want the people that I work with, either clients or otherwise, to feel empowered to really understand what their needs are and speak their needs, right? Because in order for me to get that from somebody else, well, it's got to start somewhere, and it's got to start with me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Anyone else on that? I definitely think we need a part two to this because there's some things that we've touched on that we need to dig into. But
I mean, let's do it. Let's cue it up. What we doing part two? Sign me up.
absolutely, absolutely. How much time we got left, Jeffrey?
Oh, you got another hour.
Okay, okay. So now what I want us to do is to take a look at what we've done individually just a little bit. And when you think about some of the successes you've had, what are some of the key foundational elements or some of the mantras or some of the um, pillars of what you do would you want to share with this community? Ms. Lakeisha, if you could start, it's like one or two key things.
So a couple of things that I do is being able to be personable. That's one of the things that I really pride myself in is because not everybody who looks like me, when I step into the room, are gonna feel empowered. But when you come in and you're speaking with positive words and you're encouraging, it really does help break the ice, because there have been situations where um, I've been in the room with multimillionaires and I felt nervous, but just being me, not what I offer, not what I do, but just
Mm,
having that human connection allowed that
mhm,
conversation to flow easily versus stumbling over words and numbers and charts. So
mhm,
being personable is one of the things that I would definitely say helped me to further along in my career.
That's
mhm.
fantastic. And what about your call center? When you think about that, what are some key pillars that you think make you successful overall with that?
With my call center, just being there able to work with those agents, being able not as much hold their hand, but being there when they have questions, giving them a guideline to say, hey, this is what you can do. X, Y, and Z, having that plan written out, having a script ready, having um just being a well of knowledge for for them if they have a question, and being that I've gone through that and worked through that, um it allows them to be confident to know that, okay, she's not just telling me something, but she's actually done. So
Absolutely.
being able to work with those agents.
That's fantastic. Miss Tangela?
I think one thing that I recognize is that development takes time. And
Mm,
so I remember in 2008 when I started at Michigan State in grad school, I read a book on facilitation and I just knew I wanted to work for this company. That was in 2008. So somewhere between 2008 and 10 years later, there are a lot of steps of development that I had to take to become ready to be a consultant and to work as a facilitator and to work for this company. And I can remember key moments of working with community college students and like, this is great, but it's not the glory of what I thought, I wanted to experience as a consultant. But now that I am consulting for this company, I realized that it was those moments where I was like, oh man, I'm not there yet. I was being developed. I was learning the skill. I was enhancing all the things that I need and that I use today. But that took a 10-year period. And so, what I would say for me is just knowing that my development took time and it may be the same for someone else. Hopefully, it may not be 10 years, but it may. It just may. And that's okay.
I love that. I love
mm.
that. Inez, pillars of your
Yes.
success. Mhm.
So my first one is, change the perspective on failure. Failure isn't real. You know, I think there's times before, and we can all go back on our memory and think of situations that you honestly thought that you failed, that this was the end. And, when one door closes, 30 windows open, so it might not be the door that you thought it was, but hey, it's 30 windows. You go through one of them. And then the second thing is to just show up. Show up. Show up unprepared. Show up scared. Show up with late notice, nervous. Show up every day with positive energy, knowing, hey, you know what? I got something to offer the world today.
I love that. I love that. Ernest?
Yeah, so I was going to mention something about me being a Toastmaster, very comfortable in front of people. That wasn't always the case. I know that Keisha had mentioned walking into the room and having to be extra personable. I also battle that as well. I think more so now in my advanced years that it's more so because of ageism. You know, walking in there and then first thing they say, oh, so here comes a guy over 35 or whatever the case is. but it wasn't always like that. As a younger man, you know, I've got kind of a big head, and when I was younger, I've even had people tell me you look like George Lopez, and it's funny that they would say that. They say you actually remind me of George Lopez because I would overcome that fear with comedy. I think that I have a pretty good sense of humor, so I'd always try to break the ice with a little bit of comedy. But yeah, I agree exactly what she had said. Trying to figure out what works for you, if it's personality, if it's comedy, just to kind of break the ice and make an initial connection with someone for sure. And as far as the public speaking part, I think one thing that I can give to everyone that I've learned, again, like I said, taking Toastmasters and stuff like that, when you get up and present in front of someone, and if you think you do real good, you go back and you cheer and yeah, I hit out the park. Or if you feel like there wasn't a connection and there wasn't a lot of people agreeing with what you were selling or whatever the case is, you go back and you kind of down in the dumps. Just remember that it's never really as good as you thought it was, and it's never really as bad as you thought it was. So keep that in mind.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm a big advocate of delaying assessment because when things happen and you think they mean one thing, um, it may not be finished. And so I'm not sure if this has happened to any of you. Something can happen, seems like a catastrophe. But then when you look back on it, it's like, that was one of the greatest things. Like, I'm so glad that that happened. But in that moment, it's like, oh my goodness, like it's just all falling apart. It's just, but then later on, it's a part of the unfolding. It seems like it's falling apart, but when it opens, the beautiful bloom and the fragrance from that bloom is undeniable. So
Absolutely.
delay assessment. Absolutely.
One thing that I like to think about is LL Cool J in Deep Blue Sea. Whenever he talked about relativity, he explained it very well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And none of us ever really know what God has planned. So we may have some type of definition or assessment or feeling, but you don't know. So delay assessment, be grateful for everything that happens, take it as a learning opportunity, remain positive as much as you can, and move forward. Move forward.
Okay, everybody did that moment of speaking before I jump in.
Yes. Yes, please.
All right. I humbly appreciate everybody being on the middle ground platform, but here, you got to get that Yoda game away. So humbly ask everybody, what advice do you have for someone trying to find their purpose?
The Yoda game. Who's first?
Whoever want to go first.
And you said for someone who's trying to find their purpose, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a big question to answer. I'm gonna make a first attempt, but I'm gonna acknowledge that that's a very big question to answer. So, I think the first thing, and this is not relative to cybersecurity at all. This is just being a human being, right? You got to identify what you care about, right? That thing that drives you to exist. You know, for me, it's my family. You probably saw a little bit. My cat just jumped in here. It's our pets. You know, like, and really being of service to people I care about. Like that's at the heart of it. Like I love being in tech. Don't get me wrong. And I know, like I just said, hey, we're gonna talk about it outside of the spectrum of tech, but just bear with me for a second because I'm going somewhere here with this. But when I first got into tech, over 20 years ago, I got into it under this perception or misnomer that I was going to be working with tech every day, and that was going to be the focus, and I was going to be fixing computers and solving technical problems, and it was going to just be all like motherboards and circuitry and all this other nonsense, right? And I got into it, and I realized pretty quickly that did not catch my attention. It didn't keep me engaged. It didn't keep me coming back to a job every day. That's not what was doing it. What was doing it was understanding that this technology is in service of a group of people who are serving another group of people, right? And it was understanding that the people I was working with within those organizations required support. And I was supporting them. I was helping to solve their problems. It just so happened to be that part of the solution was a technology, but the technology was not, in fact, the solution itself.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Who's next?
Well, I'll jump in. I think mine is similar to Marcus. I would say think about what you care about, but think about what draws your attention, um, the problems that you wrestle with, the problems of society. I mean, the issues of society that you continue to wrestle with, things that stay on your heart, things that stay on your mind. So I think the finding your purpose is not a grandiose task. It's really quite simple. It just requires some self-study and some attention to who you are, what you care about, what you think about, um, and what your natural makeup is. And I would say that purpose is multi-layered. I don't think it's just one thing, and I don't think your job is your purpose of your occupation is your
Mhm.
purpose. I think that it's just an extension of who you are. So finding purpose is really about just knowing what problems you care to solve. And so when I talk about purpose, I think about a woman who just always has dreamed of being a mother. And that person may just have been created to be a mother, and not just a mother to her children, but a mother to so many children, or someone who just loves health. And that may not be their career, but their purpose is just to help other people be healthy. And so I don't think purpose is limited to occupation. And I do think once you self study and just pay attention to who you are, it becomes illuminated. It's a light that you just follow. And once you do this self study, you'll notice that you've been following this light all throughout your life, and it's happened throughout time. And so, with that, I just also want to say thank you, Gina, for this opportunity, and thank you for the panel. I do have to log off after this question, but it's been a great opportunity.
I love you. Okay. Who's next?
I'll jump in. So purpose. So I feel like it's the thing that nags you, that's following you. Like you always seem to run into it no matter what. And that's my burden is for women. And it's like all this time, I'm like, women are coming and they're saying, why are they drawn to me? You know, I feel like, okay, I'm just a normal person, but my my passion is women and helping and being able to provide a little bit about my background. If we can just step out, so I was a widow at 22, and so being a widow, sometimes is something kind of associated with the older women and things like that. So when I say I can relate, I can actually bring forth type of understanding or um, empathy with that. And so not just having that purpose of, okay, yeah, I'm writing these contracts, but sometimes I get people coming off, it's not just for a contract, but maybe an encouraging word, or maybe they thought they were coming in for a contract, but God had something else to be said, or so when I sit there at my desk, sometimes it's not for the contract, but it's who he's bringing into the office so you can help. And so that's kind of when I go into the office or I go into a situation, what is my purpose? Because it's not always just talking to call center agents or writing that contract, but it's to be used um, how I need it to be used. And that's what I think my purpose is. Like Tangela was saying, it's not just one part, but it's multifaceted. And I feel like just being able to be open to where that purpose is needed, because I'm not always needed to write contracts but it's sometimes just a listening ear. So being able to be flexible in purpose is what I think.
Excellent. Ernest?
Absolutely. So I'm going to piggyback off of, well, pretty much everybody, but Marcus specifically. You got to identify your passions. You got to, boil that down and get to the salt, if you will, of what you're interested in, what you're naturally good at. I think Tangela brought up, it brings to me the word avatar. What is your avatar down here on, three-dimensional Earth, if you will, right? Some people have mechanic, frames, and they're some people are natural sports figures, 6'5", 6'6", 200 something pounds. That's awesome. Some people have really smart brains. Use that. Some people are better at networking and communicating, and Ernest brought up, just being a person's person and laughing and all those things. Just find out what your niche is and what your thing is, and go from there and fail forward ultimately.
I love it. Next. Ernest, did you go already?
I think with the group, it really shines through. But this industry gets a kind of a rap that people that work in this industry are very analytical. They don't have personable skills. So whenever someone comes into this industry and they have empathy and personable skills and sense of humor and stuff like that, sometimes it kind of adds a breath of fresh air. Is some of the things that I've heard, compliments going around the room and stuff like that. But I think they tie in together. Find out what your passion is. And if it's empathetic, seeing people succeed, then we get networks and answers like we're getting from this group, where you can tell everyone's had a problem, and everyone's been in a rush to fix a problem. So our what we bring to the table is the empathy, knowing that, okay, you're in a stress. It's Monday, a report has to be generated, or a projector's down, and you got to get the projector going because someone important is going to be making a presentation, or whatever the case is. You've been in that situation where you're already under stress, and someone comes to save the day. So I think finding your passion, and I think that's a common denominator for all of us, is that we all have a varying degrees of empathy. We all want to solve a problem. So.
It's fantastic. Marcus, did you go?
I did. I did, but I'm happy to go again.
There's a new question. There's a question. What resources are currently a barrier or barriers from where you want to be? So this is like an after the kids go to bed kind of question.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of me personally, I mean, oof. That's a tough one to like.
Let's start with career, and I'll go first.
Okay, go for it.
I want to be the model of what's possible. Organizations don't have cultures. People make cultures. And so the barrier I have, or the difficulty I have, is helping organizations recognize that sometimes I can have, so if I'm coming in, let's say as a project manager, as an example, I'm a single individual with some experience and things, but there's a whole organization of how they've already been behaving. The likelihood I'm going to be able to turn that thing around in a year is zero. If you have over 100 folks, so there's already a steady pace. And if you've been going in the wrong direction, it's going to take a lot more than just bringing in a particular individual. Like the organization has to be sold on making the change. And as a result, there has to be a sacrifice to make it. It doesn't just happen. I don't have a magic wand. And so sometimes in interviews or even before interviews, if I'm talking to leadership and I start asking questions, the impression is given that it's a simple thing to do. You just have to do A, B, and C, and it's done. People don't change like that, and often people don't change. They are drawn to a certain environment because of what's allowed to happen, and so you may have to get rid of some of the people, and that's just the way it is. So if you're at a certain spot and it's difficult to move up or it's difficult to move forward, or you're losing really good people, sometimes it's not how much you're paying. Sometimes it's not about the flexibility, the great benefits. You can work remote, things like that. Sometimes there are individuals who are building a culture that's making it impossible for you to improve. And so that's one of the barriers that I face pretty often. That's what I'll say. Who else?
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I think, and I appreciate you making that kind of creating that model so that I don't end up putting my foot in my mouth here. But I think in that reference model, one of the barriers that I face, and that I'm actively working to try and bridge, right? Overcome, if you will, is as I mentioned earlier, the communication barrier, right? Uh, I work in a space in cybersecurity where many product vendors have taken on the nomenclature of the process
Yes.
as a way to sell their technology, right?
Yes.
That creates a lot of confusion with these enterprise organizations. And, part of the barrier is me. I'm recognizing that. Part of the barrier is me because I have a natural disposition to want to help people. And oftentimes that relates back to organizations, enterprises as well. So when I see something, I feel compelled to bring attention to it. And so, that kind of that's one piece of it, but the bigger part of it really is within the space of um, understanding the delineation between this is the thing that is the process, and here's the thing that is the tool. And those two things are completely separate. And it's important to understand where one ends and the other begins, because otherwise, an individual entity or organization may move forward with the explicit misunderstanding that because they have an quote PAM tool, that they are doing PAM in this case being privileged access management, right? Uh, just because I have a fast car doesn't mean that I know how to handle that vehicle. It doesn't mean that I've been trained on operating that vehicle in a way that will result in an objective that aligns with me getting from point A to point B safely. It just means I have a fast car. That's all.
Exactly. And you may not have a map, so you don't know where you're going. You're just going fast in a circle. Oh, never mind. So
Right.
let's keep
No map, no gas, nothing, right?
forgive us, Arnaz.
Yes. So, what's the question again? I'm sorry.
Who asked this question? That's what I want to know. DJ Knox,
DJ
what
Knox.
resources are currently barriers from where you want?
All right. So,
Right.
what are the barriers that I'm dealing with currently?
Yeah, from where you want to be. Ultimately, where you want to be. And it doesn't have to be career. Yeah.
I think ultimately it's the man in the mirror. Everything is the man in the mirror or the person in the mirror, So that's my answer. Just getting better every single day, showing up, doing the best I can, intaking information, creating, that's what this whole thing is about for me.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Ernest?
Short, sweet, to the point. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, Gina kind of stole my thunder on this one. Working as a consultant, they sell a product, and then I jump on and they say, okay, you got 15 days to implement this and get it up and running, and then hand it to them.
Yes.
And then I get on the phone and they're like, okay, who's this guy? What does he know? What is his credentials? And they're familiar with their own environment, so that to me is an immediate barrier for sure. Just when you come in as a consultant, just in general, right off the bat, and I think as an industry we get a bad rap, consultants, because there are, there are bad consultants that that either don't know what they're doing, or they just wake up and sometimes, and they don't as Arne says, they don't show up. They don't care. It's Friday or whatever the case is, or they're almost done with the whatever the project is at hand. And then right off the bat, when you get on, you're staring at 10, 15, 20 different eyeballs, all with the same common denominator, that they work for the company, and those eyeballs are all staring at you, and they're wanting you to fix their problem. They may not have the right documentation. They may have not ordered the right thing. The salesman may have made them a promise that's impossible to fulfill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes they don't know what the issue is. So it's like a needle in a haystack. And you don't know if they know or not. And it could be the case that someone knows, but they don't want you to find out, because then it's going to highlight like deficiency in their understanding is very complex. I agree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I agree.
All right.
What a question. Wow.
Yeah, that was a great question.
Absolutely. And so I have a question. So when all of you think about being a consultant or providing service, whatever organization you're working for, if you have a customer, if you have a client and things, you want to make sure that the client or the customer, they get what they want. And so we end up in these legal arrangements or these contracts. How would you suggest someone who has not done that before take some time to get started and understand what that's all about? Any feedback or any ideas at all?
So I'm gonna ask you to restate the question one more time, so I fully understand, because I have a thought, but I want to make sure I'm
Nope, just
laser
go with the
focused.
thought. Just go.
All right. So one of the things that I believe is paramount and extremely helpful, and it was helpful for me, and it's been helpful for others that I've helped within the space of getting into cybersecurity, in particular, aligns really closely with something that that Arnez and Tanjala, I'm hoping I pronounced her name right, had mentioned earlier.
Angela. Mm-hmm.
Tanjala, sorry, wow, wrong emphasis. Got it. So Tanjala mentioned earlier, and it was about kind of working through that sales side of things. And so one of the things that's been extremely helpful for me, as I was, learning these things and kind of, exploring the area of identity security prior to really establishing myself as a force to be reckoned with in this space, is speaking with the vendors, like actually going hand in hand, one-on-one with those sales professionals who were selling those products and services, understanding their insights from what they were seeing dealing with their clients, understanding the vernacular, the nomenclature, the verbiage that they were using, and then being able to effectively master that language, break it down in a way that anyone can understand, but also having in my back pocket the ability to leverage that language in a way that would effectively open doors for me that otherwise would not be accessible.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And so how long have you been doing that? And is that a process you have, or you just kind of know it off the top of your head?
So it is a process, yes. I also do know off the top of my head as well, I have been doing this for I'd say roughly 15 years. Specifically that process. The interesting thing about it is, even though I've been doing it for that long, that process is continuing to evolve. It continues to change over the years. So even the version that I was doing 15 years ago is not the version I've been doing even the last 6 months. It's so
Absolutely.
different.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Contracts.
Okay, I'll pop in here. So, one of the things that I find is having my tools or my software. When I have a deadline and I'm needing to get those done, it I promise you, if my deadline is 6 p.m., everything's gonna break down at 5:30, and nothing's gonna work. And you know, and then also not saying no, as we alluded to earlier. Sometimes I will take on more contracts than I need to juggle because I do want to help. I do want to be able to provide those services to those clients. And but just going back to having the necessary tools work when I need them to work can create a barrier for me. Um and a lot of people may say, "Oh, you're inefficient" or anything, but it's like I know working with government contracts and things like that, sometimes we are slow in our processes, and so trying to meet that deadline, working with tools that sometimes may or may not work, that can be a barrier for me.
Absolutely.
But just having to dedicate those longer hours to make sure that it does get done on time. So in it, there's that sacrifice. You're putting in the longer hours outside of that normal realm just to make sure that your client does get what they need.
That's fantastic. Absolutely. Anyone else?
For me, I've been, I guess, fortunate in that I haven't really had to deal with that recently. I'd say within the last year and a half or so, because I've had an advocate with this organization. I think they understand the problems that can arise with that, so they handle all of that, and then so that way the work that gets doled out to the consultants kind of just worry about the actual consulting part of it. So as long as we follow the statement of work or statement of delivery, SOW or the SOD, as long as we follow that, we should be, covered. And, from our end. Okay, you're all laughing, so evidently you know something in the background. But I mean, from the front facing side of it, the customer facing side of it, that kind of protects us. Where it's like, well, I don't know. Let me pass it on down the road and see if we can get an answer from someone else. So again, like I said, probably not the best resource for that question.
No, listen.
You have no idea. You have no idea. You have no idea.
So before we get into that, the whole statement of work thing, Arnez, did you have anything about contracts in general that you wanted to share, or maybe not? He might be hot. He may have melted.
Stop.
I've been trying to unmute my mic because it's so hot that I've been clicking it and it doesn't even. Yeah, it's bad right now, guys. It's bad. So to add on to the contract thing, no, I'm pretty good on
Okay.
what we discussed.
Okay. Yeah. So Ernest, the reason we were laughing when you mentioned statement of work is well, from my point of view, and I don't speak for everyone, you would think that a statement of work is a document that the organizations that are involved have agreed to. First of all, you would think that a statement of work exists. And if it does exist, you would think that everyone has looked at it and agreed to it versus thinking that when the consultants arrive, they'll figure it out. Because this is a legal binding document. And so sometimes my experience has been from time to time, when you look at the statement of work, it's completely impossible. But what about you guys?
I'm gonna just jump in and say, the statement of work, man, man, people really sleep on themselves. You know, it will get you out of a bind in a heartbeat, right? Especially like a really well written one. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's never gonna be perfect, right? But it should have a set of parameters that explicitly detail what it is that you are going to do for a customer and how you're going to do it. So you think about it like this, right? They say at Burger King, you can have it your way. You want pickles, you don't gotta have pickles. You don't want onions, don't gotta worry about it. No onions. You know, you can have it. You can come in and order whatever you want. You want 3 beef patties, Whoppers on a sandwich that's stacked to the ceiling. You can get it, right? You can get what, as long as you're willing to pay for it. You can have it, right? The one thing that will happen though is that once you, as a customer, communicate what it is that you want, that person behind the counter is using that register to then input exactly what you said in the exact manner that you said it, right? So now there's a record of what you asked for, right? That record then gets put to the back of the house where the kitchen is, and they start to assemble that order for you to your specific specifications. That is the SAL. It's effectively your receipt. You get it before you even get your food, right? And it outlines exactly what it is that you said you wanted. So when your sandwich comes back and it's not quite right, I didn't ask for cheese, but there's cheese on this. Well, now you can reference that document, and that document is that standard into which you are able to state, hey, this doesn't match what we previously discussed. It's a protection for both the client and the organization who's executing the work so that everyone is on the same page. And it's interesting how many organizations engage in work from a consultant based perspective, you know, and they don't have a statement of work. They go in shooting from the hip for any number of reasons. I'm not going to go into details on that. For any number of reasons, right? And the question comes up of why wasn't this engagement successful? Why are we dealing with an issue where we have churn of employees, right? We can't retain the talent we need to be able to do the thing, or any other number of issues that might arise from that. And it becomes very simple. Well, you never actually decided. You did not set your intention on what it is that you were going to do, and you did not document that, communicate it with the client, and then have the client provide their feedback and sign off on it.
And I would say another layer to that is also being with the consultant. So the information from the client, you have it in the statement of work. From a consultant standpoint, you want me to do this thing. What's the impact immediately? What's the impact as a deliverable? And then how is this going to be sustained? Because from the consultant standpoint, if the group that I'm coming in with is incapable of doing that thing, that statement of work can be beautiful. We're not going to be able to deliver. And so sometimes the consultant groups, they sign off on things because they're champing at the bit to get the opportunity. But in terms of the end to end of how they're going to deliver that solution and deliver it in a fashion that the client can actually use it, there may be some deficiencies. Similarly, it could be the client's asking for all types of things and the consultant group can do it. But once they create that thing and deliver it, are your teams ready to take that thing and implement it in a way that they're ready to then build whatever they need to as a result of it? Are they supposed to gain new market share? Are they changing an organization, bringing on a new organization arm? If they're not able to use that thing because the organization that's taking the deliverable isn't prepared to use it, it's a waste. It ends up being sitting on the shelf. And so I think often these groups get together and they're very hyped about this future thing, but it's not thoroughly thought out. So training and development's left off. what the total cost of ownership is left off, what's the full cybersecurity impact and potential risk is left off. It's not in the document. And so the can is kicked down the road into some unfortunate future event where the organization is impacted. So that's what I found too.
I want to add one more thing, and I think this kind of puts a nice little bow on it as well, and kind of keeps it in that positive frame of mind. These are the benefits. What you're outlining, what we're all talking about. These are some of the key benefits and the value that can come out of taking a holistic approach to defining a solution.
Cut it out. They don't want that.
There are, but you may be right. However, there are so many different really good things that come out of approaching it from the holistic standpoint, right? It goes back to one of the things I learned, in my early days of being in tech, and it's that root cause analysis. You go down to the most foundational, fundamental piece of everything we're trying to do, right? You trace that line all the way back to the beginning, and you might be sitting in effectively what is a rat's nest or a spaghetti bundle of different activities, thoughts, processes, people's, like everything, technologies, all of that stuff, right? And if you're able to trace it back to that one foundational piece that can really have a significant impact on the entire organization. And this is where I specialize, right? Understanding how we can do the most while exerting the least amount of effort, right? Then you start to see all the additional benefits and all the additional efficiencies and the productivity increases that come out of it, not by, trying to get people to work more necessarily, not work harder, but work more efficiently, right? So in many cases, working more efficiently could mean, hey, I'm spending less time on this activity. However, I'm achieving the same level of result, or I'm achieving a greater level of result. And I think that's the beauty in taking that approach.
Absolutely. And I would say hand in hand with that is recognizing in an organization, wherever there's something that's ambiguous, there's likely some type of cost to it. And so the organization needs to decide, because often they don't want to change everything. Like there's a lot that goes into change and they don't want to change things, but there's a cost to not changing. And so without looking at the full cost of that thing, including the part that isn't understood, there could be a lot of not only resources, but budget that's in that area that seems to be ambiguous, even if there's a tool there or a process there, or it could be some people there and things. And so I think it's one of the foundational items that I would share is really important to understand the process as is and how it works right now before making any type of change. Does it work the way that you think it should work? And how I learned this is actually I got burned. I used to repair servers a long time ago. And so they would call into the company that I worked for and say, hey, something's wrong with our server, send out your tech. And I would go out there and they would have this long list of complaints about what this didn't work and that didn't work. I need to see it with my eyes, because sometimes their assessment of what didn't work was incorrect. And so the root cause would be completely different than what they said, but I would not have known it had I not looked for myself. And so I think it's important, especially as professionals, that we take a look for ourselves and try to figure out what do we have here and what's going on from our perspective, and not just take people's word on it. Has that ever happened to any of you, where someone told you something, you took their word on it, it didn't work out, but then when you went all the way back to the beginning, it wasn't what they said?
100%.
You said 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Give me an example.
I won't. But 100%. Yeah.
Is it too hot? It's too hot for an example?
It's too hot for an example right now, today. But
Especially for a topic like that, right?
I will be so much more engaged, I promise.
I know. That's why I invited you. You're who? What was that, Jeffrey? I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that, especially with a hot topic like that.
Yes, the hot topic, and he's hot. How about you, Ernest? Have you ever gone through a lot of work and then found out when you pull back the layers that the initial thing you were told that wasn't the issue?
I'm sure did. I can't draw anything in the immediate in my immediate past, but I'm
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a very profound problem that happens a lot.
You have to define your own problem. It's key and critical. It's sort of like if you went to the doctor and told the doctor what was wrong, and he said, "Okay, well, let's do surgery," and you're like, "Wait a minute, you're not gonna run the test? Like you just gonna take my word for it? I'm not the doctor."
It's funny that you mentioned that because if I was the patient, I would say, "Hold it, wait, what are you talking about?" And my wife is actually going through something right now. She's probably going to have a gallbladder removal, and it was really easy for me to say, "Yeah, sure, surgery, so that way the pain goes away." She goes, "What? it's not you on the cutting table."
Exactly. And so with
Yeah.
our careers, you don't want to take people's word for things. Like they mean well, they think they know. But when you get there, it's kind of like this isn't at all what the issue is. Like, what?
And I think you're highlighting a super important point. Even outside of just having specific examples, what in my experience, what ends up happening is that people are doing their best. And they're coming to the equation and they're making an assessment based off of their knowledge, their insight, their experience, and it's the best that they have to offer, and that's
And it could have been
fantastic.
right at one point. Like at one point, they could have been right.
Absolutely,
But yes,
absolutely.
yes.
And I love the effort. I think the level of effort is always going to be better than saying like, oh well, we achieved this specific result, right? I think it's also important to understand that these individuals are doing their best, and even within that, one of the things that I personally like to do when it comes to these types of engagements and conversations is question my assumptions. Anything that I think might be correct, any way that I believe that this might unfold, I always take it to the lens of what if I'm wrong? What if that's not it? What if it's something else? Right? How do I enumerate this? Like, and really, that's what it comes down to. If I'm being totally honest with you, I am probably the world's most prolific non-hacking hacker. Right? Like,
I'm taking a
I
note. I'm taking a note right now.
I'm always looking at these solutions and these situations and these environments from the lens of how do I break that? How do I break that? How do I do it in such a way that no one would even notice? And I'm not talking about breaking technology. I'm talking about breaking processes.
Oh,
I'm talking about
jam.
breaking like people, but not in like the emotional or physical sense, but understanding if this is the pattern that you engage in on an everyday basis, where those logical gaps exist. Where do you have a level of unquestionable trust within this thing that you're doing? And so when you take that course of action, you're not thinking twice about it.
You're
When
in some
when
other area, and it's my favorite. I just feel that, and I want you to finish. One thing I think we have to address is, for some reason, I was just talking to someone today that I wish was on here with us to talk about it. It seems like when you try to have a conversation with certain people and there's any level of complexity, they just immediately check out. Have you all run into this?
yeah,
If there's more than one level of complexity, they just lose it. And technology is so complex. When you talk about people, process, technology, what did you agree to? What are some of the terms that are in play? Is there a legal piece to it? Are there other third party entities involved? And they just completely check out and they just want the easy way. In
yeah,
doing that, there are so many weak points that what you're talking about is so difficult to complete. Do you guys find that, or
100%. It's the reason why I'm able to do what I do, right? Like,
oh,
I mean,
yes, you take
you
advantage of
know,
it?
exactly. I mean, here's the thing: you want me to take advantage of it. Organizations want me
Yeah,
to
because
take
the
advantage of
us
it.
is not the other. Yes, yes.
Right, right. Because when I take advantage of it, I'm gonna come back to you and let you know, like,
Here's
hey,
a
look,
recommendation. Yes.
right. Somebody came in through the side door last night, and I know that side door has a badge on it. However, I was able to slide right in behind them without them ever noticing. And as a result, I was able to do X, Y, and Z once I got on premises.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, it's better that it's stuff. Sometimes they don't want to appreciate it, but yes, absolutely, absolutely. The other
It's
thing
better
I
than me
found
finding it
too
than
is
somebody else, right?
yeah, and so it's funny that you mentioned that because the other thing too is I think one of the ways that cybersecurity infosec, one of the ways that we kind of shot ourselves in the foot is by giving the impression that there's something wrong with the employees, like as they are. They need cyber awareness training. They need this. They need that. And I feel that in the way that we did it, not that they don't need those things, but in the way that we did it, we caused a chasm between us and them, where unless they're explicitly told or it's a part of their job description, whatever happens, it just happens. And I think we did that instead of us saying, look, we all need to protect our borders and figure out how to work together in this new environment we're in by us pointing the finger and saying, well, they need to do this. I feel like we created this wall between the employees and a lot of the InfoSec community, which is unfortunate.
Negative bias, for sure. Negative bias.
And I think there's even more to that, right? And I mean, we may be going into a rabbit hole type situation. So I'm gonna briefly bring this up, and I'll say let's bring it up. Let's introduce the topic and maybe have this be part of the next conversation. I'm sure every one of us here has gone to a pharmacy, CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, what have you, right? And when you go into that pharmacy, you're going in between their normal business hours. Like some Walgreens are open 24 hours, so you can come in and go as you please anytime you need, whatever, right? Doesn't matter. It's 11 o'clock in the evening. You got to run in there and grab some Doritos, whatever, right? You got late night munchies. You can go right in and do your thing. And so what ends up happening is, and I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, and you can tell me if you have, but oftentimes I'll go into like the beauty section, and I'll see some of the products are actually locked up behind another kind of like gated type of situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a step back for a minute, right? Let's say, for instance, the store is not open 24/7, so they have normal business hours between 7 and 6, right? So they closed outside those hours. Okay, so the store is closed, and inside that closed store, there's still this beauty section that is also closed off, right? All right. So I'm going in normal business hours. I'm interacting with things. There's obviously attendants in the store. There might be security in the store. There's people that are working there, right? Mm-hmm. And we've also kind of put this additional barrier over these products and services that we need to have in order to interact with, the things that we want to accomplish. I feel like organizations have oftentimes taken that same approach. However, what they're doing is, and I think, Gina, this is kind of where it sparked this thought, is focusing on that perimeter security. It would be like that store not hiring anyone to work in it at all, not keeping anything behind any kind of protective casing or glass inside the store, right? And instead having a armed militia around the entire block. And they're checking IDs and they're making sure you have business here before they even let you in, right? However, once you get in, if you're able to, hey, look, I'm actually with the maintenance crew. I'm here to, clean your bathrooms or whatever, right? Like once you get in, there's no one in the store.
Free for all. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
There's no one in the store. There's no one to keep you from stealing. Yes. There's no other protective barriers. There's nothing, right? Like, and I feel like that also kind of comes into huge play. And there's a connective tissue that really ties that element and philosophical standpoint together with this drive for additional productivity, right? The reason why individuals within these organizations fall prey to these like types of really low level attacks of, hey, yes, I'm going to send you an email and I need you to click on this link. I'm working every day. I'm working from 9 to 5. I'm eating lunch at my desk. I don't have time to do anything else, right?
Exactly.
So I see email come in and I'm already predisposed to immediately open that email, click on it, address it, because I know I've got a boss who's gonna be like all over me if I don't.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. So they're desensitized to the controls that exist and they're exhausted. So if there is an anomaly, they didn't notice it. And if they did notice it, then it's a conflict of interest because you're sitting in a situation where you notice this anomaly. Do I now forego all the productivity by the way that I need in order to feed my family?
Mm-hmm.
To potentially talk about something or spend some energy or whatever. And I'm not sure. I'm not a cyber professional. I don't know. So do I? So now I'm left with this decision I need to make. And so I think a lot of people fall to default and just feel like, well, hopefully they have a tool or something, but I need to get this thing done. I have a deadline.
Right.
And we did it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And Lord forbid if it comes from the CEO, because then you're going to click it even quicker.
Oh, absolutely.
Or manager.
Right. And let's not even talk about, oh, I got this suspicious email and I immediately forwarded it to somebody else to take a look at.
Yes.
Right. I've got this really reactive, poisonous thing that just came to my house. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna drive all the way to Gina's house. I'm gonna be like, yo, Gina, can you look at this real quick for me?
Yeah, I've been in that situation. Listen, I've been on the yes, and sometimes it's been a doozy, like with a whole other organization involved, and yes. So,
yeah.
Because no one, if accountants wanted to be cyber pros, they would have. There's a reason they didn't want that job, and so to put on people or burden them or force them into thinking, well, now you have to wear both these hats, I think is unfair. Reasonable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so when you talk about data privacy, on the one hand, I hear the comments all the time that it should be a right. But who's going to provide that? And how do we make it sustainable? Who are we going to tap to make responsible for helping individuals not do the things they shouldn't with their information and to police the individuals who know how to take advantage of the fact that people didn't do what they should or shouldn't do with their information? Who's dedicating their life to that? So yeah, that's what I'll say about that. Any comments? Arnaz? Mr. Data Privacy?
Arnett's our resident data privacy expert. Don't let him fool you.
This lady.
Don't let him fool you. He knows more.
90 degrees in here, man. I can't think. It's 90 degrees. It's 90 degrees in here. I'm sorry, guys. I'm lucky to even be on a call still. I'm serious. It is that.
I'm gonna love watching this later. I'm gonna bring this up to you so many times. I can't even listen.
Oh my goodness!
Somebody sent some dry ice to Arnez's house.
Exactly. We should make some memes.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a soldier, though. Thank you for being a trooper.
I mean, trying to get through it, man.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, the visuals of your air conditioning being broken and you're trying to get through it. It's like you're in some type of war. It's just okay. Never mind.
He's in boxer shorts and house shoes, making it happen, huh?
That is the physical embodiment of every security professional in tech every day when they come into work.
Absolutely. You know, what I wish we had done is had a couple individuals that either wanted us to like look at their profiles or look at their resumes. We should do that next time. What do you guys think?
I love that idea. I think that's an amazing idea.
Really? Okay, we're gonna do it. Maybe Jeffrey, you can help us find some people. Maybe a mix, like some people that are in.
Oh yeah, Jeffrey, you and I, we can tag team it. Whatever you want to do. We can
industries. Like
they out here. They're waiting. They just like, oh, pick me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this has been pretty awesome.
Okay, absolutely.
Man, this has been amazing. I honestly, like, I've been on calls with like, work engagements and 30-minute, 45-minute. I'm like, oh my God, I need to leave. I can't do this no more. Like, I've been on this call for an hour and 58 minutes plus. And I'm just like, yo,
I got so many topics.
Yes, like more. Like,
yes.
That's the environment in the middle ground we try to create. We treat you like family, make you feel comfortable, talk about whatever topic needs to be talked about.
Yeah, I love it.
Absolutely. He also has a late night show, not this Saturday, but on some Saturdays. We'll have to get the link out to everyone so we can all participate on that with you, Jeffrey.
Oh yeah,
Don't twist my arm with a good time.
Yeah,
Let me ask Jeffrey, are you open for making connections on LinkedIn?
Oh sure.
That way, people that are watching, that we've sent out the links to. Follow what you're doing.
Most definitely, man. Try to get this thing across the planet.
Absolutely.
1000%.
So maybe Jeffrey, go back through all of your offerings and then you can sign us out.
I have 3 books out. #Musician Thoughts series on Amazon and Your Words Could Break the Cycle, the latest book that's out. I have 2 albums out, JLE World, JLE Experience. I have 3 shows. This one, the interview show, Middle Ground with JLE. Ground Floor, Saturdays at 10:30. Panel show about social conversation. And now on Fridays at 9:30, the Sports Lounge with JLE and Marte. We're going to cover all things about sports, training athletes. So great content coming up. Be a part. You want to advertise, get with me. Goals to make this profitable so I can start hiring people and get this all around the globe.
Yeah.
Appreciate 31 countries that have listeners now. I want all the countries. I'm a little greedy.
Fantastic.
I definitely appreciate you guys for wanting to use my platform to have this amazing conversation about career and leadership. It's been pretty awesome. I learned a lot. I look forward to part 2 of the panel discussion.
Okay.
Let's get it.
All right. And with that, I hope everybody who tuned in, you share it, start a conversation about it. I'll be doing this later to make a lot of reels so I can put out. Gina probably put something out. There's a lot of content. But I hope y'all enjoy the rest of Saturday night. Until next time, everybody.
All right. Thanks for having us. Thank you so much.
Appreciate
Take it easy, guys.
Detroit raised me. Detroit.